What is up, my brothers and sisters, my agents of respect? It's your boy Trey Johnson back with another episode of the No Disrespect But podcast. Before we get started, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Always feel free to comment. Just make sure you keep those comments respectful. Peace. So, you know, WNBA playoffs are here, guys. That's what we're going to be talking about. I mean, it's been a long 40 games, it seems. A lot of storylines, way more storylines. Um, that I think as a fan of the WNBA I've seen in a long time, obviously with Caitlin Clark being the number one overall pick, and she and Angel Reese, who's the seventh overall pick, kind of coming into the league together and watching their rise from their battles in college to their battles in the dub. Shout out to Angel Reese. Make sure you get healthy, baby girl. Was one of the rebounding leaders in the WNBA. And so I'm really excited to see what she'll do as she continues to grow. But I hope she gets healthy first. And obviously, we know what Caitlin Clark was able to do with her rookie season, getting the Indiana Fever to the postseason. Um, I mean, obviously, you have Aja Wilson going crazy. She ended up leading the league in points and rebounds. Actually, was the first person, if I'm not mistaken, to score 1,000 points ever in the WNBA's history in a season. So that just shows you how remarkable she's been. At times, having to carry this Las Vegas Aces team to respectability, what we know them to be. Sometimes it just was 22 on the floor. I'm having to be the best offensive player, having to be the best defensive player. And granted, yes, she's typically that every night for her team and against opposing teams as well. But it was maybe a little bit more of a grind. And look, after back-to-back victories in the WNBA Finals, you're getting everybody's best shot. So for the Aces to make it out and be in a respectable position in this year's playoffs, I think speaks volumes about their leadership from their locker room, their players, their coaching staff, and just the ability to get it done and get to this moment. So it's a lot riding there. New York Liberty. Hey, we know what they have in the triplets, but can they get it done this year? Diana Taurasi, it was very quietly kept, but now since we're getting to the postseason, is it DT's one of the goats of this game? Is it her last run here, in the WNBA for the Phoenix Mercury, a team she's played for her entire 20-year career? So what are we getting? Um, Brittany Griner, her first playoffs appearance since the detainment in Russia. So there's a lot to be excited about. A lot of storylines. Atlanta Dream, Ryan Howard, is she able to kind of get things going? In I think her second playoffs, 2 years in a row, they were able to make the playoffs. They were the fifth seed last year, if I'm not mistaken, but the eighth seed able to squeak in. Well, they try to make their presence known and be on upset alert on one of the league's best record-wise, the league's best in the New York Liberty. Um, Minnesota Lynx, you got them making it. They didn't make the playoffs, or they made the playoffs barely last year, I believe. We're kind of a low seed, but now second seed in the entire WNBA, led by an MVP candidate in Nafisa Collier, and some of her running mates with that team. Obviously, we know the Connecticut Sun, they're going to bring it, having one of the best defensive teams. Then you got a complete bucket in Dewana Bonner, and we'll talk on those matchups in a second. And obviously Seattle Storm, and revamping their roster around Jewel Lloyd, bringing in Skylar Diggins, bringing in Nneka Agwemeke, and bringing in Gabby Mitchell after the All-Star or after the Olympic break. So, well, a whole lot of storylines again in this year's playoffs and just in this season in general that we haven't necessarily had historically. So it's an exciting time to be a fan, whether you've been one since the Dubs conception or along the way, or you're just now you're a newbie in this thing. This is a great year. This has been a great year to be a fan, despite some of the craziness going on. So we're here. We're going to be able to crown a champion. Are we going to crown a three-time champion in a row? That hasn't happened since the Comets, I believe. Are we going to be able to do that again? Who knows? But I want to kind of break down the first round matchups. I think last year I just did the whole thing whole prediction in one episode, but I want to take my time with this. I think it's an exciting season. There's no need to rush it, no need to make guesses of who's going to win. We can take this step by step. And if I happen to be right after the first round, we'll make some predictions in the semis. If I'm right there, we'll make some predictions in the WNBA finals. Sounds good? Good. Okay. So we'll start with the 1-8 matchup. And before I get started, not everybody knows. For the newbies, you want to know how the dub works in the playoff format. It's pretty similar to the NBA in terms of seeding. You have 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5. The first round is a best of three series. The first two games, the higher seed hosts those games. And then if the lower seed is able to win one of those first two games, the third deciding game is on that lower seed's floor. So it incentivizes to a degree um, some of the lower seeds because, hey, still a game, and you have a deciding game on your home court to advance to the next round. Semis are best of 5, and so are the WNBA finals. So, again, first round, best of 3, and the next two rounds, semis and WNBA finals, respectively, are best of 5. So, let's get it started with this 1-8 matchup New York Liberty versus the Atlanta Dream. Look, Liberty have been the best team all year, and I don't think it's been a question mark. Last year, you were going Liberty Aces, Liberty Aces. This year, the New York Liberty have been the best team without a doubt. But they have to get it done in the regular season. And while they have been the best team all year, I think the Atlanta Dream, now that they got healthy post Olympic break, especially with Ron Howard coming back a little bit healthier, they've been one of the hottest teams in the league and parlaying themselves into a playoff spot, which has been great for that franchise and that team. So, the Atlanta Dream are nothing to sneeze at. Usually, this is where you're on upset alert because you have a really good team versus a hot team that does things really well. But I do think the New York Liberty just have too much firepower. Yeah, you got Stewie, you have Sabrina, you have John Quell, you have Sloop over in the point guard position, and then you have your bench. I always forget the names or pronouncing wise, so I'm not even going to try it. But Thornton and players like that. So, and obviously, not to mention, they have one of the best coaches in the history of the game. So they're just loaded. And I think that that was their intention when building this team, that they were always going to compete for the WNBA finals. Were able to make it last season. Unfortunately, didn't go their way for them. And now they're on a mission. They want to get it done. And I think they get it done in dominating fashion in the first round. Sorry, Atlanta, but I do not think the city of Atlanta sees their team on their home court. I believe New York Liberty gets this done in a sweep 2-0 on their own home floor in New York. Then we go to 2-7. Minnesota Lynx versus the Phoenix Mercury. Now, Minnesota Lynx, they are a phenomenal team. Like I mentioned before in the opening, Nafisa Kalir has had an MVP caliber year. I do think she's going to get some votes. So folks that are expecting Asia to get unanimous MVP, I don't know if that's going to happen. I do think Nafisa might get some votes because she's had a hell of a year. 20 points, almost 10 rebounds, 9.7. So just shy of averaging a double-double on the year with 20 and 10. And she has some really good some running mates. Carlton has been really good. McBride, obviously one of the better shooters in the league, elite shooter at that. They've been our running mates. They've been good. And I'll tell you, if you let Caleb McBride get hot, good luck cooling her off. It's virtually impossible, right? We've seen games where they've been struggling to score, or she's been struggling to score, and she just runs off 3 or 4 straight, and that pushes them to the edge. I think they did that recently against Indiana Fever, where she just went on her own scoring spree in the fourth quarter, and so she has the ability to do that. Thank Klay Thompson in the playoffs, where just some switch hits and he has been able to in his career to just go crazy. And I think Caleb McBride has that same level of flame torch, if you will, where she can get hot at any moment. And good luck cooling her off. And should you try to cool her off, guess what? You have an MVP caliber player in Afisa Collier that's there to remind you that, hey, I'm really the one you need to be worrying about and give it to you. But, you know, when I think of the playoff experience between them and the Phoenix Mercury, I do side with the Phoenix Mercury. I mean, yes, they've dealt with some injuries, and that's why they're a 7 seed and maybe not a 3 or 4 seed. But this is the potential last ride for Diana Taurasi. And so this isn't just another playoffs. I mean, when you think of that franchise, they're always playing for championships. And I think even as a 7 seed, they're playing for championships. But now they're playing for the best player in their franchise's history and arguably the best player in WNBA history, being Diana Taurasi. And they have proven players on their roster, playoff risers. Obviously, you got, Diana Taurasi, who averages 21 points per game, 4 assists per game in her playoff career. Brittany Griner, 18-7 playoff career. Kalia Copper, 17 points per game. They have their own little, big three going on. And as dominant as Nafisa has been, especially, in the post, Brittany Griner is one of those players that if she's out of foul trouble, she can wreck a game offensively and defensively because you're not going to go down there and attack her defensively. So that's eliminating a lot of the early paint touches that I'm sure Minnesota wants to have to set up their outside shooting. And she can get your bigs in foul trouble. She's a dominant post player, has kind of that little baseline jumper that she can shoot when she just wants to be nice to you and not take you to the rim. So I think they're going to lean heavily on BG. This is her first playoff series since being detained in Russia. So there's a lot of emotion there. And she wants to win. She wants to show that she's back. And again, Kalia Copper, playoffs is her season. Like, it's what she does. She did it with the Chicago Sky, helping lead them to a championship. And I think she was brought here to Phoenix. Yeah, they're the 7 seed, but I think she was brought here to Phoenix to help them get back to the championship caliber team that they have been historically in their franchise's history. And I think they're not your typical 7 seed. You're talking about a 7 seed that has champions. Like, I remember when like the Spurs used to be a 7 seed and they were a hard out. The Lakers a few years ago were a 7 seed, hard out. It happens. And I think they're going to be the hard out. And honestly, I got them outright. I got them winning 2-1 on their home floor. I got them still in the game in Minnesota, probably the first game, because they've been there. They have players that have been there before and know how to get these things done. And I could see them still in game one in Minnesota, probably losing game two, and then on their home court, getting things done. They have the players, they have the resume to get it done. And I just can't choose against these players. It's hard enough to choose against a tandem of Diana Taurasi and Brittany Griner. But you add Kalia Copper to the mix, uh, ball game. Ball game. I'm sorry, Minnesota, but I just don't think you're seasoned enough. I got to go with Phoenix in this one. Let me get to one of the fun matchups, right? Connecticut Sun, Indiana Fever has been one of the better matchups. I mean, you got one of the best defensive teams in the league, if not the best defensive team, versus one of the best offensive teams in the league with how they're able to run the fast break, 3-point shooting, run the score up because Kelsey Mitchell is a burner. So it's going to be a great matchup. And then not to mention the personal, stuff with two players on each side dating one another. And that has its own set of rivalry and things that go with that of, hey, I want to beat the person I'm with so I can have those bragging rights. But, man, great matchup. Now, look, the Sun have been one of the best teams. And like I said, especially defensively. You got Alyssa Thomas, you got DJ Nick Harrington, who I believe will make all defensive teams. Alyssa Thomas being Miss Triple-Double and what she's able to do and affect the game, scoring, passing, and rebounding, and on the defensive side of the ball. And DJ Nick has just been a menace as perimeter defender. And she's adding scoring on top of that. So she's not just a defender, and she's not just a 3-and-D type of player. She's someone that they lean on and run some offense through. And she's been big for them in certain stretches of making some big shots. So they're going to bring it. It's not going to be easy for the Indiana Fever. I mean, the Indiana Fever have lost 3 of these games. They've played 4 times. Indiana Fever have lost 3 times. And look, Connecticut is loaded to a degree. We know what they do defensively, but you have DeWanna Bonner, who is a complete bucket. And then you added Mabry, who's a reliable scorer, played for Chicago Sky early in the season. She's going to help stretch the floor as a 3-point shooter, and we've seen that, post Olympic break when she started getting her run with the Connecticut Sun, that she was big in terms of making some big shots, especially on the perimeter, and she adds that ability to get her own shot too. With her size, she can take advantage of some of the smaller guards. Obviously, inside the paint, but also being able to shoot over top of them. She knows how to keep the ball moving as well. So things work out, and I think the Sun are a much better team than they were probably even early on in the year when they were really good. And they have a lot riding on this playoff run. They want to show that they're for real. I think we talk a lot about the Aces and the Liberty and the Sun. They want to say, hey, we're part of this conversation too. Well, this is the perfect time to prove it. Take care of business against the Indiana Fever and move on to the next round and see if you can advance against some of the better teams in the WNBA. But again, the Fever, I said they were 1-3. Well, they won the last matchup, only won by 4 points, but they were up by almost, I think, 30 at one point in time in that game. So who knows what they can be. Uh, Obviously, have a dynamic backcourt in Caitlin Clark, who is, in my opinion, the unanimous rookie of the year and assist leader in WNBA assist leader, first team all WNBA. She has to be there. And you have Kelsey Mitchell, who, again, like I said, is a burner. She can go on a scoring tear unlike any other. And when you have the guard play, you're playing with a Caitlin Clark that can find you good looks, and the way Aaliyah Boston is passing out of the post as well. Chelsea is a triple threat in terms of how she can score inside the paint, using her speed to get to the rim, mid range. I love that pull up game she has. She's a member of Southpaw Nation, so you gotta stand up and show her love there. And obviously what she can do with the three ball. Catching and shooting out of the post when Aaliyah Boston's running the show, or coming off of screens, or a lot of times in transition being able to pull up and shoot threes. So they're going to rely heavily on that Clark and Mitchell backcourt. But against this team, excuse me, Aaliyah Boston is going to have to step up too, and obviously Nalissa is going to have to step up against the girls team. Femi is going to have to, or Timmy is going to have to step up. So there's going to be a lot of players that they're relying on. I mentioned Aaliyah Boston. I think she's found her groove, what she does really well, getting her post touches, which I think is important. Everything can't be pick and roll. Everything can't be fast break. I think sometimes they're going to have to rely on AB in the post and let her get some shots off. Let her force some of the bigs for Connecticut to get into foul trouble. I think Lexi Hall is going to be a huge factor, being able to defend on the perimeter, but she's going to have to knock down open shots. She's going to have to knock down open shots. She was able to do that in that last game, that last win versus Connecticut Sun, and she's going to be relied to do that again. If she's not hitting open shots, if she's not being a menace defensively, it's going to be hard, because the Indiana Fever don't have too many folks defensively that can make it hard for perimeter players. And to add onto that, having those perimeter defenders that can add to the offensive aspect of things too. So it'll be interesting. But look, no disrespect to my GOAT, Diana Taurasi, when she said reality is coming. Well, guess what? Reality is here, and its name is Caitlin Clark. And she is a force to be reckoned with. And I think with what the team around her has been able to galvanize around one another and find their strengths and do those things extremely well, I'm going with the Fever in this one. I know logic says it should be the Connecticut Sun that have essentially destroyed them. They have 3 wins against them out of the 4, and in 2 of those 3 wins, they were blowouts. I mean, 20-point wins. But I'm not going with logic here. Leave me alone with that. We're going with the Indiana Fever to win in 3, 2-1. And so I have 2 upsets back to back in a 2-7 matchup and in the 3-6 matchup. But I'm glad we got that fun out of the way, because we won't have that much fun in the 4-5. Aces have the undisputed MVP. Asia could very well be unanimous. I don't think she will be, but I wouldn't be surprised if she is. She's just been phenomenal, man. Like the best player without a doubt. And Seattle has a good roster, right? They went out and they tried to form a big three with Jewel Lloyd, Nneka Ogwumike, Skylar Dickens, and then post Olympic break they add Gabby Mitchell, who had a phenomenal Olympic run for France, almost leading them to a gold medal. But it's hard, man. It's hard. Like you got a big four, but Aces have a big one. And their other stars can come big at any time. Kelsey Plum can come up big at any time, right? Chelsea Gray. So obviously, I love the coach, Coach Hammond. That's my girl. Can't wait till she comes to the Wimbledon Spurs and leads us to, and keeps that sustained success that hopefully we'll start building with Wimby. But and look, I will tell you in my notes, you can read it. In my notes, if you can see it, probably can't see it, but I have aces in three. That's what I had in my notes. But as I got through the show and I started thinking more, I just feel like it's the Aces' time. They've gotten themselves together. I feel like they were kind of going through the motions this year. They were back-to-back champions. They're getting everybody's best bet. They're like, we're going to make the playoffs. We're going to three-peat. We just got to get there. So I think there was a lack of effort in certain instances. They're in the game now. They're in the playoffs now. And I'm going to change my prediction to Aces in two. I just think the Aces get it done on their home court. Look, I love what Seattle has built with their roster construction. Hopefully they can sustain that because I believe Skylar, Nneka, and Gabby are on one-year deals. And Jewel is also a free agent, if I'm not mistaken, or at least has 1 year left on her contract. So you're kind of hoping if you're the Seattle Storm, yes, you want to win this series, but you at the very least want to compete in this series and get a game and have a chance to win this series on your home court. But I just don't think we're going to get to Seattle. I just don't. I thought we did initially. I'm telling you, I had it in my notes. You saw it. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought about how Asia has just been just ridiculous. And just the intensity that she's playing with and the leader that she is, those women will be ready to go to war. And I'm going with them in two. I'm sorry. I'm going with them in two. So if you're keeping up, that would leave my semi-final bracket being the New York Liberty versus the Aces, which is the WNBA Finals. I will tell you that right now. The winner of that series is winning the championship, which is crazy that we're getting this in a semifinal matchup. If I have what the WNBA format looks like and is, I believe that would be the semifinal matchup. Then you would have the 6 seed Fever versus the 7 seed Mercury. Those are my semis. I'm not going to tell you who I think will win because I want to see if I get to this point right. But I have ideas. I have bold predictions. Y'all want me to share my bold predictions, don't you? Well, is it really bold? I think I'm gonna kind of wimp out on this. But I will say one of, you know what? Nah, I'm gonna go bold. Fever make the WNBA finals year one. Because I was going to say I think one of the Fever and the Mercury make it to the WNBA finals, but like no shit, Trey, you picked them both to make it to the semis and play each other. So that's not really that bold. So I'm gonna go bolder and say the Fever make it to the WNBA finals. And they're probably going to get throttled by whoever wins out of New York Liberty and the Aces, but I am not picking that game today. I need that series. I need time to think. I need to see what the first round looks like. I need to make sure who's healthy, who's not, what they looking like, before I pick that. I'm not touching it right now. But for me, that's a guarantee. I think you get a Liberty Aces semifinal. But maybe the Minnesota Lynx and the Connecticut Sun handle business, or maybe one of the two handle business, and we have a high seed 2 or 3 versus a low seed 6 or 7. But I'm excited, man. This is great. This is probably the most talked about WNBA playoffs in a long time, and I hope this is the beginning. Again, this isn't about being a moment. It's about being a movement. And we've heard these women say this a number of times throughout the past couple of years about it being a movement, not a moment. And I look forward to this movement continuing to grow and prosper with moments like this. But look, if y'all want to go all the way, you listen to the show and you want to start hammering down your predictions from first round to WNBA finals, by all means do it. Feel free to put that in the comment section. Feel free to let me know on Twitter at Buck Disrespect or at Future NBA Gov. That's at Future NBA and then GOV. Either one works. I will, obviously engage with you guys. But I'm curious. I'm just doing first round. So you want to be a little cat like me and just do first round predictions, do that. But if you want to be the big dog and go all the way, do that too. Let me know who you have winning these first round matchups. Let me know if you want to say the semis, the WNBA finals. Let me know who you got. Obviously, most of y'all gonna have the aces, and I don't blame you. So looking forward to that. But anyways, is there anything I said that offended anyone? That's a good thing. It's an opportunity for me to learn, and it's an opportunity for you to teach me. All I ask is that you keep it respectful. Peace.